Dan untuk sesi berikutnya, ini juga nggak kalah menarik nih. Karena temanya pasti teman-teman yang bekerja di industri kreatif ngalamin ini banget. Adapting the pitch in uncertain times. On this session, we are going to take a look at how we can adapt with the rise of virtual pitching in a time of social distancing and how it can keep business moving. Dan sesi ini akan disampaikan oleh Shufen Goh, yang merupakan salah satu pendiri dan principal of O3 Singapore, sebuah konsultan pemasaran independen global yang didirikan pada tahun 2002. Dengan lebih dari 2 dekade pengalaman di industri kreatif, ia adalah pelopor dalam memajukan praktik efektivitas pemasaran melalui pengoptimalan kemitraan dan juga pengukuran agensi. Bekerja dengan perusahaan seperti Coca-Cola, Johnson & Johnson, Unilever, Visa, dan Mastercard. Shufen juga menjabat sebagai Presiden Asosiasi Periklanan dan Pemasaran Singapura, asosiasi terkemuka di Singapura untuk Marcom Industry. Now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Shufen Goh.
Thank you, terima kasih Pak. And thank you Citra Pariwara for inviting me to share with you today. And like all of you, this is, it's always hard when you are sharing something and you're not being able to see the expressions on all your faces. But I'm delighted anyway to be given this opportunity. And hopefully today what I'm going to share will be very useful for the rest of our journey in operating in this virtual world. And without further ado, and is it sharing? Just checking that you guys are able to see what I'm sharing on the screen. We get feedback. Can the organizer confirm if you are seeing my PowerPoint screen? No? Ask them to show the screen. Can the organizer help show the screen then, because it doesn't seem to be displaying from the interface that I see here?
Hi, Shufen. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, but
okay.
Can you see the screen?
Yes. I'm sorry for the technical difficulties, but can you switch the screen?
Okay, we are trying to do that now.
Okay. All right.
Can you see now?
Yes, we can see it clearly.
Okay.
All right.
Fantastic. Sorry about that, guys. It's something that is every presenter's nightmare, right? When the technology is not working. So, for those of you who don't know R3, I just want to share with you a bit of background about R3 so that you know whatever we're sharing today, is really not just my own experience, but the collective experience of the firm. I think we're very privileged to be in a position where we are able to observe organizations from agencies as well as the big brands that we work with, and primarily we work with the chief marketing officer and their team to drive transformation for their own marketing as well as the transformation with agencies. And we do that by helping them get better return on the agencies, making sure they're working with the right agencies, and they're measuring performance in the right way. We benchmark and help them track the return on investment on their media as well as all the other channels of major spends. And we do that by, giving them an independent point of view, external benchmarks, and what we've observed as best practice. And that best practice is really developed from our own IP and experience across, like major categories that you see here. And, a lot of these clients share a common ambition to use for marketing to help them stay competitive ahead of their category. So they really care about marketing and, making sure that they really push effectiveness and efficiency in their spend. In Indonesia, we've been very lucky and to be working for a long period of time, for brands like, Telkomsel, which is a major client of ours, as well as big other multinational companies like Unilever, P&G, MasterCard, Samsung, and J&J. So that gives us a really good insight into how, local as well as multinationals have to adapt and be relevant and, stand out in Indonesia. Now, 2020 has been a tough year for everyone, I think, across the globe. And as some of you may know, we do track new business wins and losses for the agency sector, and that's published in the major trade press. And today I'm sharing with you on this slide, what we've tracked in terms of new business action in Indonesia in 2020, and you can see there's a significant drop in both the number of accounts that are changing hands as well as the revenue, or a bigger decline in revenue, 33% negative. And so there's tremendous pressure for agencies, and even on the media front, I think in terms revenue seems to be growing, or at least from what we've tracked, in terms of the value of wins that are reported, but the number of pitches seems to be a lot less, like about 17% less year on year. Now we do see generally a pickup in pitch action across the markets in AP and globally. So we expect the fourth quarter to maybe make up for some of the delay in the first 3 quarters. Now, these are the agencies that have done very well in the creative and media agencies in Indonesia in 2020. So there is significant pitch opportunities for all, I guess, agencies, but I think the key point is really what we observe in a year where we are all trying to work virtually. Agencies have to be more selective than ever in terms of whether they want to pursue that opportunity, whether that new business opportunity is legitimate, the client is, looking for hopefully longer term partnership rather than project-based pitching. Now, we are very happy that we have remained a trusted source of thought leadership and research for a lot of the, not just trade press, but the general business press like Wall Street Journal, New York Times. So a lot of the research that we do concerning the marketing sector do get quite a lot of coverage. And for those of you who are interested, a lot of this is also available on our own, the R3 website, so you can go there and download. Now, for the rest of the few minutes that we have, I just want to share specifically to the subject matter today on, what are the things that remain unchanged? What are the 7 common challenges that we observe in virtual pitching? And what are some of the best practices as a summary? Now, I want to start with some inspiration. And I think Gojek is a brand that is very familiar and close to the hearts of many Indonesians and even us here in Singapore. And, it was very heartening to see that, brands are not letting COVID get in the way of their plan, and they are still thinking big. This is a great campaign. It's a launch of Gojek brand that is unifying all the local brands that they've acquired. And I think you know, in just 10 days, this production was done. And it's, you know, as you know, all of us are like locked down. You know, we have to work around the constraints. So I think if we can do this major rebranding work with such amazing production value, I think that's a good sign of things to come on how we can use technology to our advantage. Can we play the video, please? Thank you. So that's pretty good for something that was done in 10 days and shot in 5 days. So this is a typical pitch process that if R3 is managing, we typically needs assessment of the client, establish a long list, and then we'll issue out a request for information from agencies that we have, you know, long listed. Now, I think the challenge we face is most of, you know, we put a lot of emphasis on the face-to-face, the chemistry meetings, and of course the final pitch presentation. So how do you do that well in a virtual setting, which is what we've all been doing in 2020. Now, it is possible to do a great job there, and it's always comforting to know that it's not just your agency that is, or you know, that's having to do this virtually, but you know, all the agencies who are competing for the same business have to work within the same constraints. So I'm going to share what are some of the things that we have observed that has gone wrong. And hopefully we can all learn, take away one or two things that's useful. So, you know, like some of the common problem that we see is after an hour or so, everyone is hungry for action. You know, like there was no clear agenda for the meeting, you know, and what do you want your client to take away from the session? What are the decisions you want to make? You know, how will perspectives change as a result of your, you know, presentation, and how, you know, how will their beliefs be? What do you want them to do after listening to you for 1 hour? I think it's often useful to set a very clear brief for your own team on what exactly you want to accomplish. And when it comes down to the next thing that, again, you know, especially when a client gives you an opportunity to say, look, you've got 1 hour with us, you know, we're not going to dictate what you want, what you need to cover. It's even more important that you then have to take on the initiative of establishing a clear structure. So now, you know, and I think, you know, 1 hour in the virtual world is actually a really long time. And, you know, you're not able to read the body language, how the clients are responding or not. So you have to force the interaction, right? So use, you know, prompt a lot of interaction, you know, response. Do not be afraid to pause. And even if people are not immediately interacting either via the chat or even asking questions, just wait. And you know, and you'll be surprised that if you just pause, that you know, that uncomfortable silence will prompt people to be a lot more interactive sometimes. And I think the other common example. And recently we have one case, a presentation where some of the teams are in person and some are virtual, right? Joining in from either their homes or their office. And those who are not physically present could feel like they're in a parallel universe, you know, like how do you engage them to be in the same meeting? So make sure that you design your whole meeting to make sure that everyone gets the same experience. And I think one of the really important thing is, unlike in the I think real life pitching, you know, often we see that perhaps the CEO of the agency or the most senior person is often the facilitator of the whole meeting. But I think in the virtual setting, you need to assign someone in your team to do that job as a full-time job, right? Just to make sure that someone is constantly watching whatever cues or, you know, checking into the chatbot, you know, and seeing that people are, maybe there are questions posed, or maybe we need to take a pause now so that people are digesting what has been shared so far. So appoint a central facilitator. I think that works very well. Make sure that someone is always looking at the chats. And you know, the other common problem we've seen is that the key presenter drones on and on and on, you know, and often again agencies like to ask R3 for the pitches that we manage for more time. But the reality is that time can work against you, right? You need to be, and in fact, we are making a conscious effort to make the time shorter because, like I said earlier, in the virtual world, people are less patient. You know, they get bored easily. They get distracted. They may turn the camera off and do something else, and you don't want to lose their attention. You know, I alluded to earlier in terms of the importance of good planning and you know, being organized, being extra prepared, doing more rehearsals, doing more tech check, making sure that, you know, you're very familiar with the meeting tools and setting. Ask for, you know, opportunity to either do a tech check or do a rehearsal on the client's platform. And most of the clients that we work with, they have their own platform. They can't, some of them are not using Zoom, some are still using Zoom. So make sure that you get all of that checked. And, you know, with no role in the meeting, some participants get, like I said, disengaged and bored. And this could happen on both your own team as well as the clients that you're presenting to. So it's often a good idea to set expectations and, you know, again, try to make sure that everyone has a role, you know, and actually if they have no role, then maybe there's no need for them to be in the meeting. You know, again, this actually does apply to real life meetings as well, because agencies are quite fond of sending too many people to a meeting, and they just, but not in, and you could have 10 people from an agency, but in fact only 2 or 3 are actively participating. That doesn't send a really good message across to the clients. Likewise, we often say to the clients that the people in the meeting should be the ones that are evaluating and have a role in choosing the agency. And they're not just there to fill up the space, right? Because, you know, the more intimate, in fact, in the meeting, the more productive and effective it is. And that's really from our experience. And if they're not engaged, I think try to create a poll, and we wanted to do that actually for today's presentation, but I think technical challenges can sometimes be an issue, but there are some apps that are really easy to set up that makes it interactive. And you know, that we've used that in our own webinars, we've used that in our own sharing, live sharing as well. We find that to be really useful to be able to sense check the room, you know, and for people who are shy and do not want to ask verbal questions, they could express their opinion alternatively. And I think another common problem, and this becomes even more of a problem when it's virtual, is too much rambling and too complicated. A slide on the PPT is not engaging enough. Again, we even if you have a lot of data, try to make the data tell a story. Try to use visuals, use large type, because again, you may never know, right? Some of the audience that you're presenting to could be doing it via a mobile, right? So imagine if you have a really text-heavy PowerPoint, that's not going to work very well at all for you. And what we found to be good practice is also keeping to one big point, a slide, especially when you're presenting quite a complicated idea across. You might want to use that rather than try to squeeze everything into one slide. So in summary, I thought it would be useful to just list down some of what we've seen as good practice and how you can go about doing that. And I think the platform, being familiar with the platform is so critical. In fact, we recently had a pitch where we wasted about, I think, 15 minutes of, the first 15 minutes, the agency was trying to get the technology working. And that's because someone insisted that the CEO be part of the meeting. And they, however, on that day itself, the tech didn't work very well. So, the senior client was a bit annoyed. That's not the best way to start the meeting. So someone should have been assigned to then make the call to say, let's not waste more time. Let's carry on with it. Because we know that even if you've done tech checks, do it as many times as you can, but we know that, Murphy's Law, right? Sometimes you got to be prepared for Murphy's Law. And I think generally the best good meetings are designed around discussion. We know sometimes it's difficult to do that, but I think when you lay that up front, you set very clear time frame for discussion, as opposed to nice to have discussion later, and have someone in your team sense check your own timing. I think that's one good way. Another way to ensure that clients are prepared for discussion is to send the presentation decks, or at least a pre-read prior to the call, to the meeting. Now, again, agencies are always shy about, no, we don't want to reveal everything. We want, like, ahead of the meeting, we want to slowly reveal it and build it up in the presentation. But I think the fact that we are all doing virtually and we want to hear feedback, and if that feedback is important to you, giving a pre-read in advance of the meeting is very helpful. And I think making it face-to-face in the virtual world, ensure that your own room has good lighting, that your agency teams themselves must be on video. Don't make it an option. And I think that creates a bit of, you can ask the client to also turn on their video, even if it's just for the introduction. I think out of courtesy, most of the clients would do that. And where possible, and in case you have, anticipate some technology challenges. So there was a case where, we've come across recently where the Wi-Fi wasn't particularly good for an agency person that was, joining. And, in the end, it had to be backed up and participated via a line instead. So make sure that you have all these options covered. I said earlier about good sharing protocol. So assign a meeting leader, and also send that structure ahead of time. Be clear to your own team who is speaking for how long, and I think record and circulate your presentation, even if the client is hosting the session, I think you should ask for the recording to be done, so that whoever is has missed the meeting, they can actually refer back to that. It's often useful. And I think the next point about power of video, I think we've all experienced sometimes the video doesn't play, and that happens even in real life. But nonetheless, it should not stop us from making it more interactive and giving people a break from the presenter, giving people time to be inspired as well. So some of the ways that if you're playing a video, often it's the audio that is a problem. So make sure that you have subtitles. So this is especially important for your own work, when you're sharing the agency's work. So make sure you have subtitles, and I think that works really well. And that's my case on the case study, making it self-explanatory. This is where, having short description of what the video is about is important. Now, also anticipate that if you can't play the video, how will your presenter bring that case study to life? So that's another, all the what if situations should be considered, because case studies are really important, especially if it's your agency's case study. Last but not least, always allocate time and create opportunity for feedback. And the feedback, if you're not getting any feedback immediately at the end of the meeting, straight away have a follow-up or a link for them to be able to tell you, after the session. So don't, I think, be seen as proactive, and don't wait for the client to ask their own team for feedback. I think the agency should always initiate that and create that opportunity for the clients to engage with you directly, and not just the one lead person from the client side. So with that, I think we've come to the end of my sharing. This is my email, and if you've got further questions, feel free to email me. And a lot of what I've shared today is in the white papers and reports that are on the R3 website, which I think the organizer has. All right. Thank you, and have a good seminar ahead.
So much, Shufen, for joining us today, and I believe the viewers have learned a lot from your session. Have a good day. Bye-bye. Dan gak berasa sekarang kita udah akan masuk nih ke sesi berikutnya. Sudah ada 3 sesi, dan untuk sesi berikutnya kita akan ngebahas apa setelah yang ini.